Hello, and welcome to the MMA Mic Drop Podcast. My name is Jade Bunky. This is episode number 13, and I am joined by the one and only Milo McGregor. You know him on Instagram as Milo McShredder. In today's episode, we're going to break down UFC Fight Night, Dolidze versus Imavov. In addition, we are going to talk about Conor McGregor towards the end of this show. We're going to talk about a couple other UFC 300 fights that can be made. There are a few that I left out in our last show in which we broke down what fights can still be made for UFC 300. So check out that show if you haven't, but stay tuned because we will be talking about UFC 300 a little more or a little later, in this podcast. Now, with that said, Milo, this is not the strongest fight night card. How would you grade it?
I think I'm gonna have to give it a solid D.
A solid D. Yeah, there's not a lot of high-level fights on here, not a lot of fights with big implications in the rankings. There's a couple fun fights. You know, I would go a B minus. You know, it's teetering between B minus and C plus. Again, it's not the strongest card, but I think there's some really fun matchups. So with that said, let's get into it. Let's give our picks and predictions. So the first fight, Nassourdine Imavov versus Roman Dolidze. I think this is a great fight. I mean, these are two top 15 ranked guys. I think they're appropriately ranked. We saw Dolidze, find his ceiling, against Marvin Vettori, in which he lost that fight. He was looking pretty good before that. You move over to Nassourdine. He lost a fight, and then he had a no contest. You might think, okay, he's on a little bit of a downturn. But if you look at those particular fights, you're thinking, okay, he lost to Sean Strickland. Okay, that aged incredibly well. And his no contest, he was piecing up and completely outclassing Chris Curtis. It was just due to an accidental headbutt. I think he's a really good fighter. He's an all-around fighter. He's 12-4. Dolidze is 12-2. Probably has the power advantage over there. But I'm going to go with Nassourdine by decision. I think this is a really good fight. I think it's going to be a fun fight. And I think he's going to have probably a better pace with, a lot with, crisper striking and just a better all around game. What do you think, Milo?
Yeah, I agree. I think he's just gonna piece him up and just like catch him off guard when Roman's gonna have a ton of power and throw big strikes. So yeah, and you see that happen a lot.
Yeah, and that is a pretty good and I like that what you're saying because I've seen Dolidze come out kind of slow at times as well, and I think Imavov is going to probably put a little pace on him. I don't think it's going to be overwhelming, but I think it's just going to be a lot quicker, because a lot quicker, a lot crisper. And I think also, Dolidze is, 35. Imavov is 28. He's probably still, improving, whereas Dolidze is a finished product. So did you say by knockout or how is he going to?
I said by third round TKO.
Third round TKO. There you have it. All right, next up, this one's another fun fight. Moicano versus Drew Dober. Now, Moicano's an all-around fighter. He's got good striking, really good grappling. He's got a lot of submissions. Drew Dober, he is a striker, and he hits hard. He knocks people out. And if you look at his record, a lot of his losses are to some really good guys. But he brings the heat. Now, it's interesting. Moicano gets a lot of subs. Drew Dober gets a lot of knockouts. I'm going Moicano, but I'm going by decision. Milo, what do you think?
I think I'm gonna go Drew Dober by decision.
All right, so here we go. We have two finishers on the fight, fighting, and we're both going by decision. And let me just double check. Let me take a look at Moicano's finish rate. It's not that he's a finisher. It's in terms of subs. He has 10 subs on his record, but no knockouts. But he's a good striker too. So it is kind of interesting. So he could catch you in a sub, but we're still going. And let me just, we're still going decisions. And I just want to double check. Yeah. So Drew Dober's knockouts, he has 14 knockouts out of his 27 wins, and he has 6 submissions. So he's finished 20 out of 27. So he could finish the fight. And I know, Milo, you like knockouts, so you're probably going to be rooting for a Dober knockout,
Yeah,
but you think it's going to go a decision.
yeah.
All right, next up, we have Randy Brown versus Muslim Salikov. This is another really good fight. Both of them are strikers. Randy Brown's got pretty incredible reach for his weight division. He has a lot of range. He's a really rangy fighter, good striker, really fun fighter to watch. And speaking of fun fighters to watch, so is Salikov. I think the difference though is Solikov's age. He's starting to slow down a bit. And let me just get his age. Yeah, he's 39. And we're going to talk about nicknames too. Milo's going to rank the best and worst nicknames on this card later in the show. But I'm just going to say it right now: the King of Kung Fu. That's kind of a cool nickname. He's going to bring it. Randy Brown's going to bring it. I think Randy Brown. I mean, he's younger. He's faster. He's a little more rangier. Well, I shouldn't say rangier. He just has a better reach. Solikov has really good range. But give me Randy Brown and give me by third round TKO. What do you think, Milo?
I'm gonna go Muslims Salikov by decision.
By decision. Any reason why?
I don't know, just the gut feeling.
Just a gut feeling. All right. Sometimes those gut feelings work. Maybe that's why you're so good at picking some of these fights. All right. So next up, again, this is I'm glad I didn't give it a C plus because when I'm looking at this card as I'm going down, these are actually pretty good fights. Vivian Araujo versus Natalia Silva. Araujo's a good, solid veteran, whereas Silva's that top up and comer, and she's looked good. She's won 10 in a row. You look at her record, and let me just glance over. It's like 16-5. But yeah, in her first 4 fights, she went 1-3 because she started so young. She started as a teenager. She is legit. She is the real deal. She is going to win this fight. Give me Silva by decision. What do you think, Milo?
I'm gonna go Silva by submission.
Silva by submission in what round?
In a second.
Oh, in the second. I thought you said wait a second. Okay, so in the second. All right. Next up. All right. This is, and I'm going to have to read his name, look at his name when I pronounce it to make sure I don't butcher it. Alice, let's say, I'm just going to call him the 12-0 undefeated fighter. Okay. Because I cannot pronounce his name.
Yeah, I don't think I
And
could either.
yeah, exactly. He's 12-0, and we have Muradov, who is 26-8. Now, actually, both of these are good fighters. I have watched both of them, and the undefeated fighter, I only watched him in the UFC. I've only watched him in his debut. But what he won that fight, but that was a while ago. The problem with him is he only fights every couple of years. He's 12-0, but he's getting up there. He's 33 years old, and you have to be concerned about a fighter that takes so much time off, regardless of the reason. Where's that fighter at now? Now you move over, and let me just look at the age for Muradov. He's 33 too. He looked a little slower not in his. I wouldn't say his last fight, but the 2 fights before that. See, he fought Barberena. He beat Barberena. That's not that impressive. But before that, he lost to Caio. Before that, Gerald Meerschaert. Now, Gerald Meerschaert, it's not a bad loss, but it's a bad loss at this age because Meerschaert is a much older fighter, and he's always been a slower fighter who will just somehow catch you in a sub or something. But the fact that he was able to catch was able to catch Muradov and win by decision is a little alarming. So I'm going to go with the undefeated fighter. I expect him to go 13-0, even though I cannot pronounce his name now. And I'm hoping after this fight night, after listening to the announcers pronounce his name over and over again, I'm able to pronounce it in the recap show. Milo, who are you picking?
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with you. I think he's gonna become 13-0, however you pronounce his name, in the third round.
Third round. Oh, and you know what? That's the other thing. I'm sorry. I think it's going to be a third round TKO. Third round is it going to be a stoppage, a submission, a TKO, a clean knockout, a decision? What do you?
Submission.
Submission. Oh wow. All right. All right. Next up, Gilbert Urbina versus Charlie Radke. This is a prelim fight. Not really, too excited about either of these guys. Not going to provide much of a breakdown here, but give me Radke by decision. And I'm going to rifle through these. Milo typically doesn't like giving predictions for the fight night prelims. When we do the pay-per-views, he'll provide picks and predictions for each one. So I'm just going to rifle through these. And Milo, if I get anything wrong, if you have a difference of opinion on any of these, feel free to speak up. Molly McCann, all right, versus Deanna Belbita. I think McCann is much better everywhere. She has a tendency to get spinning back fist. She has 2 spinning finishes in a row. But then the UFC matched her up against Erin Blanchfield, which, that she was completely outclassed there. I think Belbita, more of a kickboxer, hasn't really shown much in the UFC. Give me Molly McCann by spinning back fist TKO in the 3rd round. That's what I'm guessing.
Yeah, I agree.
You agree? All right. So Milo's going to chime in for some of these. Now, next one we have Azat Maxum versus Charles Johnson. Charles Johnson's a pretty good fighter. He has a couple losses, but to some pretty good guys, but he's not extremely high level. Azat is 17-0. And while that's typically good, he did not look particularly good in his UFC debut. And I'm going to bring that up right now because he lost a split decision to Tyson Nam. Tyson Nam is around 40 years old. Now, that's a problem. If you're an undefeated fighter, are you fighting in these lower promotions, winning, beating overmatched guys? This is a really good test for him, and I really don't know what's going to happen. But it's hard for me to still root against an undefeated fighter. It was his first fight. Does he have something more to offer? I don't know. I'm tentatively going with Azat, and I say he's going to go 18-0. Milo, do you have an opinion, or should I just keep on going?
No, I think you're wrong.
Oh, you think Charles Johnson's going to get it done?
Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to ask you your opinion on each of these. I just won't ask for a breakdown. I'll get your opinion on each of these because I think you have an opinion on these, which is great. Themba Gorimbo versus Pete Rodriguez. Now, this is actually a really good story. He's the one that, I don't know if you've seen it online, but this is where The Rock bought him a house. And he was...
Oh, yeah, I have seen that guy. Yeah.
It's really cool. And it was cool because you can see like The Rock was like really genuinely interested in helping this guy and everything. And it was a really cool story. And so he's a hard guy against whom to root. But he's a good fighter. I think he's an all-around fighter. He's, pretty solid. He's going up against Pete Rodriguez. Pete Rodriguez has some good power. He's a striker, but I really haven't. He's at times looked sloppy, and I really haven't seen that much of his all-around game because he usually, wins by knockout. But I'm going to go with Gorimbo and give me Gorimbo by 3rd round submission.
I hope he wins.
You what? You hope he wins?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Just cool story, huh? So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't really know, but yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a cool story. And then next up we have Blake Builder versus Zhang Yong Lee. Now Lee's hits hard, and he's 1-0. Let me just double check. He's 1-0 in the UFC, and he was on that. It was a split decision. He was on the road to the UFC. That's what he won. He's a solid fighter. I think Blake Builder. I think he's going to be a little too much for Blake Builder. I'm being careful what I say about Blake Builder because Milo knows somebody who knows Blake Builder. So as you can see, if you watched any of our previous shows, we're a little kinder to people who live in our area, or we'll root. A lot of people say I'm unbiased. I'm going to break it down. No, we're totally biased, and it's kind of fun that way. So we're going to look at people we like, people of whom we're fans, people that we know somebody who knows that person, or if they're from our local area, we're definitely going to root for them. So, but I still think he's going to be a little outmatched, and give me Lee by, give me Lee by 3rd round submission. Do you have any thoughts on this, Milo?
I think Blake by Third round TKO.
All right, there you have it. All right, Luana Carolina versus Julia Stolyarenko. Now Stolyarenko, she has one move. It's an armbar, kind of like your sister Milo. Just got the armbar, but is an expert at it. And
Yeah,
like your sister, an expert at armbars. I know she's probably stretched your arm out a little too many
but
times and making you tap.
yeah,
Yep.
just my
So
right one's longer.
yeah, there you go. So but and it's funny. I'm going to bring this up just so I'm going to look at a record right now, so I can. I just want to be technically accurate what I'm saying because it's a fascinating stat. So she's 11-7, okay, and all of her wins though, except for one, has come by submission. So she's either going to get you in that armbar or she's going to lose, and it's kind of interesting. Um, Carolina, she's got good size, good reach, but a little slower, kind of slow and plodding. I'm going to say Stolyarenko gets it done again. She did it against Molly McCann. I think she's going to get it done again. Give me Stolyarenko by second round armbar. What do you think, Milo?
Yeah, I agree. I
Awesome.
agree.
All right,
Third
next
round.
up, Landon Quinones versus Markel Medeiros. I've watched Medeiros on the Contender Series. He looked good. Quinones didn't look that great in his last fight, in the UFC. Give me Medeiros. Hopefully I'm pronouncing his name correctly. Give me him by second round knockout. Do you have an opinion on this one?
I think I'm gonna go Medeiros by decision.
All right. Finally, the last fight on the card, and let's see, it's Jamal Pogues versus Thomas Peterson. Um, Again, pretty, and I'm sorry, I'm just glancing down at some stuff here. Um, pretty low level heavyweight fight. I don't know enough about Peterson. I've only seen him fight once, and it was on the Contender Series, and he was dominant there. And I don't think Pogues has that much upside, so I'm just going to go with Peterson. Give me Peterson third round knockout. Milo, what do you think?
I'm gonna go Peterson first round knockout.
Awesome. Well, there you have it. Those are our picks. But now we're going to talk about UFC 300. In particular, we're going to talk about Conor McGregor. So in our last show, we talked about the fights we should make for UFC 300, fights that could still realistically be on the card. And in that, I said, okay, hold on, we'll get to Conor McGregor in a moment. And I never got to Conor McGregor. And that was my bad. So we're going to talk about Conor McGregor right now because there are some scenarios in which he does fight for UFC 300. Now, what we were doing is we were taking the approach that, hey, we were told he's not fighting on UFC 300. Okay, there's been no indication that he has been, or no direct indication that he was planning to fight on UFC 300. So we created a bunch of scenarios without him. But I also want to create a couple scenarios with him. And there was one fight that I actually thought of last night that nobody is talking about that would be interesting. So my first thought on Conor McGregor is that, if he does fight Michael Chandler, I don't think that's a main event worthy fight for UFC 300 because it's not a championship fight. And it's a fight I definitely want to see. And I think the fight is appropriate for UFC 300, just not the main event. Because I think what you do if you put him as the opener on the main card, what it does is it legitimizes everybody else above him. And those are people who are going to be at the UFC longer, who have better, who have the potential to augment their brands in a certain way. I think that would be the right way to approach it if it's not a title fight. Now, the question is, would Conor McGregor even want to be the opener, right? Probably not. So then you think, okay, well, what could be a fight in which Conor McGregor fights for, or that Conor McGregor fights as the main event at UFC 300? Now, a lot of people are saying Nick Diaz or Nate Diaz. I don't like that fight. I don't think that's that interesting of a fight. If I do see Nate Diaz, I'd like to see him against Jorge Masvidal on the card. Simply because it's more competitively appropriate, also given their age, right? So I was thinking, Dana White said he's going to announce something crazy that we're all going to be just blown away with, and I don't think it's just Nate and Connor, and because I don't think that's something that will blow people away. It can't be Izzy and DDP, even though I think that would be an incredible and appropriate headliner for UFC 300. What if it's Conor McGregor versus Habib Nurmagomedov in his return? He's thrown. They're both 35. They hate each other. I mean, that's where you have the real beef.
Yeah.
Everybody would be blown away. No one would care if it's for the title. Everybody would want to see it. I think, anyways. Milo, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I felt like Khabib's like 100% not returning. I heard he got offered like $60 million to go fight like again or something. He didn't like take it.
Yeah,
So I mean, I would want it to happen. I want it to happen, but I don't
you
know.
just see no way that's going to happen. You know,
Yeah, I don't think so.
you know, and you're probably right. You're probably right about that. Yeah, you're definitely probably right about that. But it's one of those things where I was thinking, you know, what's the most out of the box thing? Because if Dana White's saying you're going to be blown away by this, all of the standard fights about which we're thinking are exciting and they're interesting, but you're not going to be blown away with them, right? Um, so that's where I was thinking, maybe,
That's
huh?
that'd be insane. That would be insane.
Yeah. And would you care if it's a title fight or not if it was the headline?
No, not at all.
Yeah,
I don't care.
and that would be, and I think that would be appropriate. You know, and there still is a possibility. Maybe they do put Chandler and. Let me ask you this: what if they do put Chandler and McGregor as the headliner for UFC 300? Is that something you want, or is it something you don't want?
That's yeah. I think that's the most like possible thing to happen with McGregor. I think they could just like put him in at 300, even though he said he's gonna find an international fight with her. But yeah.
Yeah, well, Dana White said that fight wasn't happening, so and then
Yeah.
there's that tweet where I think Connor said, UFC 300 seals the deal. So is that him saying, "Hey, put me on UFC 300, I'll sign a contract extension"? And I imagine that's what a lot of this holdup is. I believe he has only 2 fights left on his contract. They
Yeah.
they probably don't want him fighting it out. I don't know what a sunset clause is for his contract in particular, and so. UFC 300 has a lot of us guessing. Dana White's, really raised the stakes, hyping it up.
Yeah.
And that's awesome because if he delivers, there are a couple fights that are possible. And I think a lot of people are, saying there are not that many fights. I think there are a lot of fights that can still be made. Or let me rephrase that. I think there are a handful of really good fights that can still be made. And we broke that down in our UFC 300 video, our most recent one. We did 2 of them. We did one before before the start of the year, and then we did a recent one. And just wanted to add that because I totally forgot to talk about Conor McGregor, possibly the biggest star in the UFC, for the UFC 300 card, even though I mentioned that in our last podcast that I was going to talk about it. So with that said, let's get into our sections, our standard sections, Kook of the Week, and Kicking It with Milo. We'll start with Kicking It with Milo.
How about the nick?
Oh, I'm sorry. I always forget something. Yeah, the nicknames. That's right. Milo's going to break down who has the best nickname on this fight card that's coming up and who has the worst nickname.
I mean, I think the best nickname is Molly Meatball McCann. I think that rhymes perfect. And Gilbert, the RGV bad boy, Urbina. I don't even. That's horrible. I don't even know what that means.
I don't even know what that means, but yeah, whenever you put bad boy in there,
good.
sounds pretty lame, right?
Yeah. Bad boy, that's crazy.
Yeah. I love the Molly McCann nickname, Meatball. That's freaking hilarious. It's and what I like about it too, it's original.
It's good.
It's not really where she's using alliteration. It's actually kind of funny and interesting because a lot of people try to do something tough and like hardcore. Meatball.
Bad boy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Meatball is sick.
That's sick. Awesome.
Yeah, I agree.
I like your selections there. All right, let's move into our last section, Kicking It with Milo. Milo, I know you've been transitioning to more Muay Thai recently. Tell me about your Muay Thai experience.
I've been getting kicked in the shins a lot and it hurts.
Yeah, so, you showed me you got some pretty big bruises there. Are you learning how to check kicks pretty well then? Or is that from those offensive strikes?
That's from that's from checking kicks.
Oh jeez.
It hurts you bad too when you do check them and when you get checked it hurts you even more.
Yeah, and your dad was telling
Yeah.
me you're sparring against much bigger guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
You're
that's
gonna
always going to
have the
hurt a little.
Alex Persians.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there you
it's
go. Well, it's funny. You compete in terms of surfing against older persons. You're fighting against older people. So I think it's quite apropos.
yeah.
So awesome. Well, there you have it. That's our show for today. Milo, before we sign off, do you have a last word for everybody?
Drop the mic.
We're out.